Hey everybody, welcome to another Marketing Monday. I am excited to have the owner of Now Sourcing, Brian Wallace, on with me. Brian, you are someone I've known for a little bit here on LinkedIn and on Facebook, so I'm excited to have you.
Yes, sir. Likewise. Thank you.
It's really funny. We were talking just before the show started. I never actually had been to your website before today, so I'm a little embarrassed, but it is what it is. So you can help me. In a minute, we'll pull up your website. We can walk through it, but
let's do that.
It's nowsourcing.com. If you guys want to check it out, I'm actually going to put that link in the comments so y'all can check it out. And
yes,
for those of you who are not familiar with the show, we do take questions. So if you have a marketing question at all and you want to get it answered, first in, first served. So if you already have one, go ahead and pop that in now. What we're doing, just so you know, we always do networking. Every one of my events, we do networking. So tell us where you're from. Tell us what you do. If you're looking for a job, tell us that. If you own a business, go ahead and give a little pitch. Don't spam, but it's okay to tell us who you are and what you do on this show.
And if you don't say anything, nobody's going to pay attention to you, right?
That's right.
Why should it all be on us, right? Come on. Don't be a wallflower.
We have to be friendly. We have to engage with people on social media. Otherwise, it just doesn't work. So that's actually one of the reasons why I brought you on, Brian. I've invited a whole bunch of people, and I've got good, guests booked into March already. But I went through my list, and I was like, who do I know that is in the marketing space, different types of spaces, but marketing, and who are friendly, who are in different, like I have people that are big on Instagram or, wherever they're big, LinkedIn, wherever. And I thought, one guy that I see on a consistent basis on Facebook. So that's where I know you're on multiple platforms, but that's where I catch you most of the time is in my Facebook feed. So I thought, let me bring in my buddy, Brian. So maybe 2 minutes, 3 minutes, just kind of introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about your business, what you do, how maybe you got into the marketing space and some of that stuff, just some generalities maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. So first off, appreciative of you, Ira, because like you said, you've got people booked for months on end and you brought me in. So I feel grateful to be showing up at the beginning of the year. Thank you.
You were one of the first people that I sought out.
That's super interesting. I'd love to hear more. And I think part of what you said is very telling, because while everybody zigs, I zag, not to be purposefully contrarian, but when I see too many people doing something easy, I think something shouldn't be that easy. And I think a lot of people misunderstand how to wield influence on the internet. Not like a greedy influence. I'm not here to make fun of influencers, but like when everything is about your ego and about you and not knowing how to kind of share that wealth, people notice, right? So I think that the pretext and the context of what you said is everything. So even though we kind of know each other more through LinkedIn, you said, you know what? Brian looks like he's doing something interesting on Facebook. What the heck? Like, while everybody's talking about LinkedIn, myself included, why is he doing Facebook? Because if we listen to a lot of our friends, they're going to say, well, Facebook sucks. Facebook's terrible. Facebook's where you go to have political argument. But you know what else is true about Facebook? Aren't there like 2 billion people on it? Did they all leave? No. So while everybody's having like a gutter street fight about whatever, if I'm talking about business, guess what? If you happen to be in your Facebook feed, it's just another way that you're going to interact with my live stream, which I do every week. But a lot of people knew that live stream from LinkedIn. But recently I've been multi-streaming because I had a feeling, and believe it or not, craziest thing, more interaction and simultaneous viewers typically on Facebook than LinkedIn. The weirdest thing in the world, right?
Yeah, and I've actually noticed that. So I own Bowman Digital Media. Obviously, I got it all over the screen here, but also I'm a part of Exit Your Way. In Exit Your Way, we have a couple things. We have a roundtable on Thursdays that we do. We have a couple. We are noticing back end website visitors more are coming from Facebook 3-1 than from LinkedIn because of our shows.
Right.
So it's not only the engagement, which we all want when you're on a content creator, but you ultimately want to drive traffic to your website because that's where, they have,
maybe
that's where the services are. Right. So anyways, for us, that's an important component, and we're getting a lot more return on investment for our Facebook activities. So, yeah.
So I feel like there's a couple things you could argue there, honestly. So I don't necessarily always want everybody to go to the website, because if they are engaged, let's say, with a piece of content on LinkedIn or a live stream, whatever I'm sharing there, if my profile is good enough for them to get into my DMs and book an appointment, we might just entirely skip the website. Sure. But as you and I were talking about beforehand, and I don't want to jump the gun on this conversation, there's a lot of very interesting things that are happening in the world of media that what I'm going to say makes more sense now in the current situation. I'm not here to get political, but I'm here to get technological.
No, absolutely.
Thing that we always need to keep in mind, whether we're talking about Facebook, if we love them, hate them, somewhere in the middle, LinkedIn's better, worse, whatever, that's all a distraction to the simple truth that all of these sites are borrowed land. I don't own LinkedIn. I don't own Facebook. Ira, I don't think, even if you're like an investor in it, just because you have a share of stock doesn't mean that they couldn't just destroy your account overnight. Pretty sure we just saw that happen on Twitter.
Right. Some mighty powerful people, you could even say, have had their access taken away. And
yes, I think that's true. I'm pretty sure.
And again, look, if you're watching this and you want to debate politics, this is not the place for that. I don't.
Please, right.
I don't do any of that. But the fact is, it doesn't matter what Brian's saying. Super smart, and there's other reasons too. We could get into it in detail. Like why does it make sense to be on multiple platforms? Well, a platform could shut you down. A platform could just evaporate. But also, I tell people the most basic reason is this. If you're in business and you're trying to promote your business, and I am, and that's what I'm trying to do, I'm the producer of the content, not the consumer of the content. You have to think like the consumer. So you need to know your target market, and also your referral sources could come from a variety of places, even if they aren't your target audience. So for example, I might have, with the 2 to 3 billion people on Facebook, I might have a bunch of people that are on there that I'm not reaching if I'm only on LinkedIn. And I have hundreds of thousands of people who follow me on LinkedIn. I'm not trying to disparage it at all, but we're broadcasting today on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn for the reason that there are people who are on YouTube who are not on LinkedIn. And even if they are on LinkedIn, they might have so many other things going on in their feed because of the algorithms and the way that plays out that I want to be seen. Now, maybe I should clarify what I was saying before. I don't always want people to go to my website with every post or everything that I do, but I do eventually want people to go visit my website if I can, because I have a bunch of stuff on my website. So everybody's got different, philosophies and strategies. But for me, I've got a bunch of samples of what I do, my menu, for example, which makes me a little bit rare for a media company. I actually tell everybody what my prices are. So here's my service and here's the price. There's no surprise quote, if you will, or invoice. So I'm a little bit different, but I actually was talking about, do you know Damon Pistolka? Do you know him by chance?
Say the last name?
Damon Pistolka. It's a Polish name, I believe.
I don't. Name does not come to mind. No.
He's a partner in Exit Your Way, and his thing this morning was about continuing to learn, and that solutions, or there isn't necessarily one solution for everybody that works. Like your situation kind of helps dictate if that will work for you or not. And I 100% agree with that. You could even have two companies that are very similar, facing similar problems, but the answer because of this or that could be completely different. So I'm definitely not a one size fits all guy or one shoe fits all.
Weird. Dude, we're the same guy with different colored glasses, because I was literally going to use the words one size fits all. I think that we could both argue to the death about prices or not. And I think that it's going to be what you're offering, how clearly defined it is. So like I have like a general array and rate, but we price by the project. So it's not like a single number all the time.
Yeah, it depends.
Not because we're trying to take advantage of something, because some people read this wrong. Now, some people it's like, oh, you just want more money because they're big and they're small. Blah, blah, blah. No, it's actually, we're scoping, we're sizing up the level of effort. Yeah.
Yeah. And like I said, not every answer is right for me. And it may not even be right for me forever. For me, for now, I'd made the decision to call, which it wasn't like a slam dunk, but I did make that call for myself to go that way, and we'll see. But people have like the transparency for me, because they'll go, well, how much is it for me to get a 3-minute video made?
Right.
Like, it's right there. You know what I mean?
At the end, right.
We actually have a question already, which is pretty cool. We don't get a ton of questions on this show, but it is cool when we get good ones. And it looks like this is
I love questions.
The way I always do rule of engagement, I let the guest answer first, and then I do any cleanup, or like if we're going to say the same thing, I was going to say ditto or I agree, and then we go on from there.
We don't need talking heads, correct? There's enough.
Yeah. Okay. Question is, how can I build myself as a brand for better job opportunities? So this fresher, if you're not familiar with that, straight out of college, looking for a job in data science field last 6 months. In Wazim, just a little bit of data. You may not be familiar with, Brian, because this is one of my areas of expertise. The average job search pre-COVID-19 was 6 to 9 months. Okay. So that's you're right there in the industry standard. So 6 months, don't get discouraged by that. It can get frustrating, but that's the normal.
Right.
But that was also pre-COVID-19. It takes longer now. The data hasn't been published yet. We'll start to see some data published here shortly, because we've turned the page on the year. But my supposition on it is it's doubled. So what was 6 to 9 months is more going to be 12 to 18 months, but that's just my best guess. So anyways, from there, Brian, please.
So I love to be not just the only talking head. I know that you and I are smart, but other people are also smart. What do you say? And this is totally up to you, Ira, because it's your show. I don't want to mess with things. What if we screen shared his LinkedIn? Because I see his comments coming in from LinkedIn.
Can't do that.
Okay, never mind.
Can't do that. Unfortunately.
Ah, man. Oh, well.
Yeah, LinkedIn Live has some rules I can't break, or I'll lose my show.
Fair enough. Yeah. So what I would say is, Wasim, to stand out from everybody else, regardless of how many months, plus or minus, like I was saying, I agree, it's probably more, because it's more competitive than ever. People are losing, like hundreds and thousands of millions of people are losing their jobs every week. So you've got a stack of people who have tons more experience than you, and you're on the bottom of the totem pole, which sucks. Maybe you'll get a lucky break, but you got a hard road ahead, man. I sure wouldn't want to be coming out of college right now. It's horrible. Yeah. So you've got to stand out. So I would say making an incredible LinkedIn profile all the way through, being super clear on what you want, and making original content is everything. Because guess what? And I'd love to hear your thoughts on this too, Ira. I've heard from LinkedIn that less than 1% of the 750 whatever million people that are on LinkedIn make content. The end.
100%. That's 100%. In fact, it's only about 1 million. It's a little bit more than that now, but it was the last time I looked at this in hard numbers, it was about 1 million pieces of content per day. And that's simple math. That's simple math, right?
That's like going to a marathon and you're the only one that shows up.
Right.
There's like 3 other people.
Well, and I'm going to tell you, you are on the right track for sure. I don't know if you looked up his profile.
I didn't, but
I am looking at it right now. It needs some work. I will tell you, I have a website that I run. It's free. It's projecthelpyougrow.com. In fact, I'm going to put the banner up for you. Azim, that you can go check this out. This is actually how I got my start and how I grew on LinkedIn, in case anybody's not familiar with my story, which I would like to get into your story a little bit more too, Brian.
Of course. Yeah, we kind of skipped over that.
Yeah, as soon as we're done with this, because we got the question.
Here.
But Project Help You Grow, what it is, guys, it's a free platform. There's no ads, there's no commercials, there's no nothing. It's just a philanthropy. I pay for it so that you don't have to worry about anything but the help. What I do is I teach you how to build your profile. I teach you how to make content. I teach you how to set your cover photo, which Wazim, you need some help there, right? So just quick, if you're trying to capture attention, the average view on LinkedIn is 6 seconds. If you don't capture their attention in that first 6 seconds, you've got no shot. They're going to move on. So you've got the open to work frame in. That's good because that signifies that you're looking. So that lets them know. But the rainbow cover that you got in the background, the problem with that is it doesn't tell us what you do. So my advice straight away is get that cover photo. Let us know in the cover photo, just simply, data science data science, right? So open to work, looking for work. Where you want to work is important too. It looks like you're from India, just making that assumption just based on the name in the photograph and everything. But if you want to work in somewhere else, it's important to let them know that too. Like willing to work remotely or willing to relocate anywhere or, wherever you happen to be. I'm a big proponent in making it simple for people to understand what it is you're trying to accomplish in that first 6 seconds. Because if you can hook them, now they'll deep dive. But you got to get them. It's the same thing with resumes, unfortunately. Resumes are read 6 to 7 seconds. Again, industry standards. So if you don't catch their attention in the resume or the CV, if you're in India, it's a CV. But if you don't catch their attention in that first 6 to 7 seconds, you've got no shot. So anyways, there's a couple more pieces for you. The other thing that I would suggest, this is something you don't hear from a lot of people. Find somebody who's already working in the data space industry and ask them some questions. Interview them. Pick their brain. It's called an informational interview. And what you do basically is you let them know, hey, you're doing what I want to do. If you were starting over because you're a fresher, what would you do? They have inside connections. I'll tell you one of the things that can happen. If you do this authentically, you can build rapport with people. They'll actually take you under their wing in a lot of cases and start to introduce you to people that can hire you or potentially get you that referral chain, which Brian and I both will tell you 100%. The value in all of this is the relationships. We want to get to know people authentically. That's why Brian's on the show, because I know he's like that too. So Wazim, if you can get to know more people in the industry, they're already doing what you want to do or have already done what you want to do, and ask them some questions, they'll help you out, especially if you can find one in the area. So let's say you wanted to move to California. I'm just making an assumption here, but you wanted to move to California. You'd find somebody in the data science space working in California and ask them these questions. There you go. All right. So Brian, I think we've tackled that pretty good. Let's go.
Can I add one counterpoint to what you said?
Oh, absolutely, you can.
This is more of, I think if you're just starting out in a career, I think it's good to do open to work. But I feel like if you're already a little bit further along, I know some people, it's a very polarizing topic. Should I put open to work or not? And I feel like sometimes it makes people come off looking a little desperate. That's just kind of my 2 cents. I feel like if I were looking through and if I were a hiring manager and I'm a business owner, it kind of rubs me the wrong way, because like if you're like in so much demand, like why, right? Like,
well, you just said it. You just said it. Most people, now I've been in sales for 20 years. Okay,
totally.
Most people want to buy things that are in demand, not things that are plentiful. So what you want to do, and I 100% agree with you, Brian.
Oh man,
I never want to make myself look desperate, ever, in any situation, because again, price is determined by supply and demand. I mean, that's just the economic equation for it. So if you're in high demand, then you've driven your price down, and that open to work could cost you money. Even if you get the offer, it could cost you money in the offer, because they're like, well, he's obviously trying really hard here to land anything. So just be careful. Strategies make fights, right? So you have to weigh out the risks and the rewards for everything, and not every answer. For some people, open to work might be the right thing to do. For other people, definitely not. So they're
totally.
And counterpoints are always welcome, Brian. I think iron sharpens iron, man. So I'm down. I'm down with it. I'm down with any time you've got something. And again, neither one of us might be right in every situation. It's totally
right. And I'm not here to attack anybody's character or person. I'm here to I like to argue ideas, because the argument of ideas is the refinement of them.
Right.
One quick thing, and then
we get smarter by not being closed-minded, by being open to other ideas, especially when other people have experiences that you don't have. It's like, wow, I never thought of it that way. I love it. That's why you're here. 100%.
Thanks, okay. One quick thing, and let's move on to the story. So one thing that screams out to me from Wasim, and Wasim, we'll get off you right after this. He's got the magic words and what he is doing. Data science is so freaking hot right now. It is one of the most in-demand career tracks. So really refining that and making content about it, you will stand out. And I can't imagine why you wouldn't get a job in one of the hottest sectors. So there you go.
Yeah. Yeah. And for job seekers out there, even his question was smart because he understands that he needs to brand himself. He's ahead of the game there. So if you take some of this advice that we've given you, and if you go visit Project Help You Grow, read those blogs. I don't make a penny on it. Like I said, you'll never see any advertising. There is nothing. You don't have to sign up for nothing. It's all free. No account needed. Just go check that out. That will help you because you can deep dive into some of these thoughts and strategies. And anyways, it'll be a help. We do have somebody saying something here. Let's see. Brian Wallace, this is from Dolores. I've been told that to list yourself as available on LinkedIn can be a turnoff. Yeah, and for the reasons we just said, right? So asked and answered, I think, already. So anyways, Brian, let's get into your story, like the genesis of how you got all this rolling and got into, this field so that people understand, because I'm just going to presume a lot of my audience has never heard of you before. So I want them to have a good foundation for your knowledge.
For sure. Buckle up, kids. Let's enter the crazy cult of Brian. Ironically, there was a pretty well-known in the Jewish world. I'm a Jewish person. This is not a Halloween costume.
It's not a proper TV.
Yeah, exactly. There's a well-known Jewish print publication that actually just did like this 5-6 page deep dive on my life story, which just dropped like over the weekend, which I just posted to LinkedIn. So I got to tell you, I'm feeling a little exposed out there because like a lot of people are reading like my whole life story, which is weird. But at the same time, I'm just like, you know what? If it helps people understand me and understand the world, good enough for me.
Yeah.
I'm not saying stuff that's private or secret or weird. I'm just a regular guy. But for those of you who don't know who I am, I'm originally from New York, born in Brooklyn, grew up in the suburbs, eventually kind of got sick of New York and got sick of my first decade working in technology. So my family and I moved out to the kind of the nexus of the Midwest and the South at a stop for a number of years in Louisville, Kentucky. But these days we're in Cincinnati, Ohio, otherwise known as the Triangle, that I've never met anybody else that actually cares about that. But I was kind of miserable as a technologist because nobody cares how technology works. They just care about what it does. So because I like to not run my mouth, but have a lot of opinions about things, and I'm verbose and I know how to explain things, it did not suit me and who I was. And I really didn't like working for other people. So after a whole decade in technology, I was all the way up to CTO, have all sorts of useless degrees. I can explain all sorts of tech stuff, but again, nobody's listening. So left that place as bringing them in as a client, moved to Kentucky, and then I thought about being like a fractional CTO, CIO, but whatever. That was when the dawn of social media came. So this is back 14 and a half years ago in 2006, before the whole housing market crisis. So I've been a social media practitioner forever. So when I talk about borrowed land and all these sites can rise and fall, I've watched them. They're just wreckage on the highway for me. So right. We're hot on LinkedIn right now.
MySpace isn't MySpace anymore.
Yeah, right. And, today we'll probably talk about Clubhouse a little bit and Parler and all this stuff that's happening in the world. But at the end of the day, you don't know what's going to happen with any of these things. They might be hot today, but it doesn't mean anything. So I'm big on not being a one-trick pony. So was a social media practitioner a long time ago, like back when Facebook didn't even have Facebook pages and crazy stuff like that. I would walk into boardrooms, everybody would laugh at me, and then they'd call me back in a couple of years. But then there was the proliferation and expansion of social, where everybody thought that they were a social media expert. I'm sure you've seen some of them, Ira, that don't know crap about anything. They just basically watch our show, take notes, and then pivot it on their own.
That's the I think the big minus side of social media right now is there are too many self-proclaimed gurus.
Yes. Jeff Bezos says that your brand is what other people say about you when you're not in the room. Anybody can talk a good game about themselves. I got a track record, and I am both more interested in what other people have to say about me than I'm saying, and I'm not really interested in what people have to say about me because I'm a grown up. But
right, I'm not in junior high anymore either.
What are we at the lunch table? Come on, let's be friends. Let's be adults. So I kind of got sick of the whole social media thing, just as like being a generalist, because I think it's noisy with a bunch of not proper practitioners, people that just sell courses that have never done anything, one-hit wonders, or like I like to call some people zero-hit wonders. If you've never done anything, why are you doing it for others? Right?
A million views because somebody else commented on my post and that drove it up, and they think that it was because of them. You know what I mean? It's like you don't even realize why your post went viral.
Right, exactly. Viral doesn't mean anything.
Right.
In a world where everybody talks about making some noise, I make signal. So in the end of the 2000s, I said, I don't want to be everything to everybody anymore. I don't want to make websites and do SEO and reputation management and this and that. And it's just too distracting. I'm going to like lose my mind. So at the time, this is like the end of 2008, early 2009, I'm just like, all right, what am I good at? What's my small team good at? And it kind of boiled down to like 3 basic things. Really good at storytelling, making it visual, and then making it some level of like viral, getting news and media and stuff like that. So
do you want me to bring up your website?
Please do. Yeah. So a million years ago, and this isn't on the website yet, there was this website called dig.com, which still exists, but now it kind of sucks. So there were 100 people across the world that controlled like 50% of what was on that front page. And that page was the show. If you got promoted to the front page there, you were like the talk of the town. You would get so much simultaneous traffic, it would like crash websites. So I was one of those guys. So that was kind of like the third part of it, and then the visuals and the story and all that. So back then, in 2008, there were maybe like 3 people on the planet that did these things called infographics. So I was 4th or something. So for the last 12 years or whatever it is, something like that. I don't know, because we were still doing like phasing out social as a broad. So we really refined it as a medium, as an institution, and as a service, where nowadays, if you look at the website and all of that, you see that we make ideas simple, visual, and influential. Because a lot of people, it's like, you make infographics? I can go download a template. What do I need that for? But like my website says, we make ideas simple, visual, and influential. So those words are everything. Ideas means we help make ideas better, because a lot of people think they have a great idea, but it's never been tested.
Right.
Simple is a trick. Simple's not easy. Simple's hard. Simplicity is the currency that I navigate through the web and through influence. Visual is extremely important because people cut corners on that. And when you make something that looks bad, what if you're a Fortune 500 company? You could go down on Wall Street. Why would you do that to yourself? You wouldn't send like your 3rd grader's PowerPoint presentation to the media. So come on. Everybody's got to have like the same handshake stock photography. Come on now. And when you can mix in emotion, storytelling, and really cool data points, that is when some really interesting things happen. And I'm sure this will resonate with Ira as well as many of you. Influential is an incredible word that is very often misunderstood. So the neutral part of that word is influence. The negative side, like I said, with the Fire Festival and starving to death with the cheese sandwich on an abandoned island, that's being an influencer, where it's all about like ego and greed and pump and dump and whatever. Yeah. Not broad strokes destroying influencers, but sometimes it's not a good look. All right. But influential are people who are servant leaders, who lead with heart, who do things without any expectation of something in return. Like Ira said himself with his website. I forget the name of the website, but whatever that website is, it doesn't have ads. You're not charging people. You're not paywalling it. It's not a scheme. You're just helping people. And guess what, guys? I'm sure Ira does great because he's known as a helpful guy. And that's why we resonate. That's why we're on the show in the first place.
You know, it is true. Andy Foote. I don't know if you know who Andy Foote is, but
I do. We've been hanging out in Clubhouse like all day.
Yep. Yeah. So Andy Foote had a Clubhouse. I mean, we'll get into Clubhouse in a little bit, but but he's a LinkedIn coach, and he's one that actually knows what he's doing. Mm-hmm. And talk about iron sharpening iron. He and I have different strategies on how we handle a lot of things on our personal accounts, but that's because we're trying to accomplish different objectives.
Right.
But I was in his audience. He pulled me up on stage and let me speak. And that's the first thing he said is, guys, I want you to know that what Ira does more than anything is he tries to add value. I actually hate it when people call me an influencer. I don't feel like one, and I'm not trying to be one.
Yeah, it's gross, isn't it?
I'm not wearing a product on my wrist or my head to try and sell you something every minute of the day. I mean, I do have my company name out there, but that's because I'm trying to brand my company. But,
exactly. But honestly, like, does anybody want to see either of us in a bikini? I think
no. There's something wrong with them, honestly.
Right.
No offense.
It's an unhealthy, whatever. Like, you can look good. I'm not criticizing people who are beautiful, but I'm saying it's like, it's just a very self-centered, one-dimensional view on humanity that I really am not into. Say it again.
I like to eat cake too much. Nobody wants to see this naked.
Yeah, right. Yeah, ever see that video with Cake by the Ocean? There's like this really overweight guy. It's like not, it's a weird thing, but he's also an influencer. But let's not get weird. Yeah.
Tell me, where do you want me? Do you want me to show these guys anything on the site? I mean, the site is awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
So
I
I really like this too. I'm just going to say straight off the bat, and I have the same thing. I have testimonials on my website. In fact, I'm just going to pull it up real quick. That's amazing coincidence, but I have the same thing. So I have testimonials. What do people say? Because exactly what you said. I could say whatever I want about myself. Doesn't make it true. What do people say about you? You know what I did, Brian? I took what people wrote about me, the recommendations on LinkedIn, and I put them here.
I want to say an important thing that I think is a very helpful strategy to those of you who don't know what to put on your website when it comes to clients, testimonials, work products, and things like that. There's two spheres. This is probably one of the most important things you will learn today if you've never heard this spelled out for you. There's two spheres that influence a person's opinion of you and your service and buying behavior. It dazzles the mind. Ready? Buckle up, because I've thought about this for years and years. Again, I've been professionally on the internet for 25 years and run this company for 14 and a half. So this isn't like just something I'm spitballing here. This is practice, tried and true over thousands and thousands of hours. There's two things that people care about, two categories. Ready? One is that you do something amazing for anybody. They don't care if it's a big fancy brand. It's just you did something amazing, the end, okay? That should be self-explanatory. The other sphere is that you do something for an amazing, well-known company. That also should be self-explanatory. Like if you click on I'm not bragging here, but again, if you look at the clients page, I've got some of the fanciest logos that you can imagine because we're a thing, we're a household name in our industry. But here's what's really interesting. When you can, to take a cross the streams, Ghostbusters thing, or the nexus of those two circles, if you can do something amazing for somebody or something that's well known, that is the category of legendary that most people never get to play and not too often. So there's a famous claim to fame thing that we do where there was a basketball player who came to us, wasn't well known in the league. We got so much talking about him on the internet right before it was time. Say it again.
Is it this guy?
It's that guy. And if you click on, if you go a little bit further down on the page, there's a case study of it if you want to go to that.
Is that this here? I thought I did.
I think my street. Yeah, that's it. Yep. So this is a well-known guy in the game now, but he wasn't back then. So we helped him get his first big contract of $64 million. He's the 6th highest paid player in the history of the game right now.
There you go.
So that's a claim to fame.
Yeah, that's one example of the power of what you do.
Yes.
Yeah. No. Look, more people need to know who you are and what you do. That's why you're on my show. 100%.
Well, thank you. I'm appreciative of that, man.
So check this out, guys. And this is what marketing is about. It's about figuring out who you're trying to reach, what they're trying to accomplish, and then what tools that you can incorporate into the quote unquote pitch, and then putting it all together. And Brian says it. I mean, it's so simple, but it's true. I'm going to go back to the homepage just because this is it. Ideas that are simple, visual, and influential. And this part, I know influencer has left a sour taste in a lot of people's mouth right now, mine included. But that's not what this is saying. This is saying it's helping to get them to go from wherever they are to where you want them to be. And these campaigns that he's creating, that's the whole that's what it's about. Mm-hmm. So anyways, okay. Hopefully I didn't mess you up there, but
no. Are you kidding?
I want to help reinforce what you were saying. And I apologize when you were talking about big names. Hello, there's Microsoft, Google, Forbes, FedEx. If you don't know these companies, where the heck have you been?
Then how are you even on the internet? I don't know.
Right. You know what I mean? So, but I was typing what I was doing. I was looking the other way. I was typing on LinkedIn the two categories. Anyways, I was trying to help.
Yeah, you're good, man. You're not going to skip a beat.
I need an assistant who drives the screens while I do my typing.
When I do my shows, I like doing it. I don't want somebody in between it because I don't know how I would tell them to respond and whatever.
Are you comfortable? I'm going to share. I use a program called StreamYard to run my live streams. That's how I do it. Do you use StreamYard or do you use something else?
I do not. So I happen to use Switcher Studio. I know the folks at Switcher Studio personally. I've known them for years. Like I said, we lived in Louisville, Kentucky. A lot of the team's still there. So Switcher's actually based out there. So I know Nick and the gang for years. We've spoken on stages before. We actually just did an event together for the Content Marketing Institute a couple months ago. What is time anymore? I don't even know. I think it was a few months ago. Could have been 6 months, could have been 3 months. No, like 3 months, 2 months, whatever. It's all COVID time, so everything's like all.
Yeah, no doubt. You know, you probably don't know this because I didn't live out there for very long, but for 2.5 years, I lived in Fairfield, Ohio, which is just north of Cincinnati.
No way.
Dayton and Cincinnati. Yeah, my wife's family is from St. Bernard. That's where they're. That's where they're originally from.
That's super close to my house. That's very cool.
So we used to go to. There's a place out there called Chili Time in St. Bernard. We used to go there all the time. Love it.
I keep kosher, so I can't get all that. We make our own chili.
Yeah. Can you do Grader's ice cream? Have you done any of that?
Oh man, I'm glad you bring that up. Yes, Grader's is kosher.
Grader's is like.
If you don't know what Grader's is, if you don't live in this part of the country, that's your fault.
You gotta get it.
You should just move here for the ice cream.
It was on the Oprah Winfrey Show as the best ice cream in the country.
It's incredible. It's this small batch, old school French pot stuff that is just. It's addictive. They put
now you know why I can't wear a bikini. Right? I like that stuff.
Okay, ice cream.
All right. So let's talk about this. I always ask every guest a couple of the same questions, and I am. You've been in the technology game for a long time. Like I got on Facebook in 2008. I got on LinkedIn in 2009. I am not an early adapter of technology. However, and we're going to come back because we've got 23 minutes left. So I want to get to Parler and to Clubhouse because it's kind of like two opposite sides of the coin right now.
Yes, yeah.
One's struggling to survive and one's like on fire. So we'll talk about those. But marketing right now, one of the common things that you see as a struggle for businesses in general. So it's kind of a generalized question, but it's interesting the different answers that I've gotten. So I want to get your take on it because you're a technology expert. So what would you say one of the 2020 maybe it doesn't have to be COVID related, but it could be because of COVID, one of the struggles that people and again it could be if you go SMB or it could be if you go large corporation, the answers can change. So I'm just curious, what would you say, like, hey, this is something I've identified as definitely a marketing issue people are facing right now?
Boy, is that a loaded question. So
right, and you could go a million ways with it, right? That's what makes it fun. No pressure. And I did for the audience out there. I did not.
I mean, I could spend hours on this, but let me back up because you highlighted that I'm a technologist. Because I'm a specialist in what I do with how I market, I'm a little bit of a polymath in the sense that we get to work with like every industry there is. So we get to see a lot of different industry trends that everybody doesn't always get to see because a lot of people pick specialties by industry, but we are industry agnostic. And because of lateral thinking and connecting the points of intersection, we can say this thing that's happening with pet food is happening with blockchain, is happening with CBD, is happening with healthcare. So it's kind of all over the place. I think that people don't spend enough time getting their messaging right. Kind of like when we talked about the simple, visual, and influential. A lot of people, let's pretend that we all own a restaurant, a fancy restaurant, where we only go for celebrations and birthdays and family affairs. So if you had the choice of one of these two doors, which are hands, but bear with me because my hands are not doors, and I like to say weird stuff, which restaurant do you want to be? You want to be the one where the chef makes all the ambiance and the violins are playing and the candlelight and the table is set and you can smell the aromas and it's wonderful and get myself hungry, not just for ice cream as we speak? Or do you want to be the guy who rolls out all of the ingredients and starts reading all the ingredient manifest? Now, when I say it like that, I sound like a psychopath. Who on earth would ever read the ingredients? But that is exactly what everybody does. They over-explain the minutia of the business that nobody cares about. People only want to know what you do for them and that you care about.
Yeah. Now you just hit the nail on the head for me because I think that's the part that most people forget. Yes. They're telling you, and I have another guest who says the wee syndrome. That everything's about them, and you're missing the mark by a million miles, bro. People don't care. It's like that old expression: people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
That's
Your
exactly.
website, if your website and your marketing and your advertising efforts are all about you, you've completely missed it. How do you solve a problem? What problem do you solve? How is it going to help the person that you're solving it for? If you focus on those things. In fact, we even have a question that ties in with all this. He says, I don't own a business, but I do have a shoe line I'm trying to promote. What advice would you guys have? Focus on your customer, how you help your customer, not the fact that you need to sell a shoe line is not their concern. They don't care about that. They don't care how many.
Right. This is an easy one.
Yeah.
Just spend a moment, because a few months ago, we lost a visionary in the field for shoe lines. You know who I'm talking about? Tony Hsieh, the guy who didn't start, but grew Zappos to $1 billion acquisition in Amazon. If you ever, absolute pioneer, because he cared about people, not because he sold shoes. It doesn't matter what the guy sold. The guy knew how to have unparalleled customer experience. Michael, Ira, and everybody watching, if you have never heard Tony speak, you should not go to bed tonight before you do.
Yeah, check him out.
A common thing that he talked about at the beginning of his stuff, he would explain that, so they were based in Vegas. He would say that he would have a Zappos shuttle pick you up at the airport, give you a tour, and then bring you to your hotel. Who the heck even would think to do that? And that's like 1 second of his speech. All the stuff that he brought to the world, which we all should have known in kindergarten, is pretty much everything you need to know about all business. But I think specific application, because it's a very similar line, is what you need, Michael. Thank you.
And I'm going to tell you that this transcends just sales and marketing efforts. We had another question. It was related to job seeking, so I just kind of skipped over it because I didn't want. This isn't my job seeking show. I actually have one of those too.
Yeah, you're
I'm trying to keep this on marketing, but I will say this, and it goes to this too, because the question here: employers tend to look for experienced employees. How do you think we should react towards this? Well, listen to the advice that we gave earlier, but also listen to this advice. A job search, when you're a company and you're looking for somebody, you're not looking for somebody named Ira Bowman or Brian Wallace. What you're looking for is someone to fill a hole that you have. What do you need? You need somebody who does a certain thing. You need somebody who can do it in a certain way, from a certain location, certain time, certain experience, certain education, all that stuff. But you have a need lift, right, that you're trying to fill. So as a job seeker, if you can show them that you are the solution to that problem, it isn't about your name and all that other stuff. It's about you can get the job done. And that's what you need to convey. So you need to take the time as a job seeker to understand, or to what I call the point of view, which can be a little weird too, depending on what type of movies you're into. But if you get into the perspective of point of view and say, okay, instead of sitting in Ira's chair, that's me, or Brian's chair from Brian's point of view, but try and sit on the other side of the desk and go, if I was hiring for this position, what would I need and why would I need it? And then if you can show them, communicate that, and you do that as a sales rep, a marketing rep, a business owner, a job seeker, I mean, anything. If you can figure out the perspective, and this is where I was going with the consumer and the producer idea earlier too. It's like, I love LinkedIn more than any other platform. I'm just being 100% transparent.
Same, dude. Same.
It's my favorite platform. And if I was just there to entertain myself and educate myself, I would never go to Facebook. I would never go to YouTube. I would never go to Pinterest. I would never go to Instagram, TikTok, which I don't really go to anymore anyways. But I wouldn't go to these sites because I would be more happy 100% of the time on LinkedIn. But because I'm a producer and I'm putting out content, I want to reach people who have a variety of interests. I've got to fish in the lakes where they swim. Otherwise, I'm not going to catch them. You know what I mean? So it's the same thing with the job seeker. It's the same thing with Brian, with your, not Brian, Michael, with the shoes. You gotta speak something that's going to interest the person reading it. And they don't care that you've been around. Like, nobody cares that Brian's been around in technology since 2000, whatever, until they need somebody who can do what Brian does. And then all of a sudden that experience comes into play. You know what I mean? And when you see
I'm only as good as I am today, honestly. I think
right. And that's the other thing. If we come across as egomaniacs, self-centered, You know, we're always, whatever happens, we're trying to step over people and say, look at me, look at me. That isn't good either. So one of the things I tell people is learn to be somebody else's champion, lift them up. You know what I mean? So you be more like the tour guide and let them be the superstar. You're going to get much further in life. I don't care what you do. So you guys can take all that advice for what it's worth. It's just the ramblings of a guy.
Can I ramble a little bit more?
You can, 100%. Okay. And then we're going to get
I'm
into
a business owner and I'm an employer. Let me tell you some of the two first questions I ask people when they walk in the door for an interview. There's a ton of places that you could have applied. Why us?
Yeah.
First one. Second, have you spent any time on the website? Tell me something you know about us. Anybody who can't answer both of those probably sucks as an employee for you and probably for everyone, because it shows them how ridiculously inattentive they are. That means you're going to let them in the door and they're immediately just going to go on Indeed.com and find something else. Why nobody's paying attention is crazy. I don't get it.
I have an interview prep.
Ooh, link it.
That I've written. I'm gonna find it here if I can get this thing to load. Sometimes I have trouble with my website when I'm running these lives. But it's called How to Win the Interview.
Ooh, that's a good one.
But what you said is exactly part of what I've put in there, because too many people are being flippant about the interview. They're like, they know everything about themselves. They think they don't need to prep. It's like, no, you not only should know about the company, you should know their industry. You should know their products or services. You should know, their history. You should be able to answer why you want to work there. And I'm going to tell you something else. You should look up some of their competitors and figure out what makes them different. That could be the difference. Like if I'm talking to you, Brian, for a position, and I can speak intelligently not only about your company, but where you are in the market and how you're competing, and maybe have an idea or two about how you could advance against your competition, I think that would wow you and certainly make me stand out. But also, I want you to research culture. Maybe I'm a better fit for your competitor. And I know that sounds weird, but wouldn't you rather have me fit where I belong, and it's going to make me happier because I'm culturally, and you happier because I'm not in the wrong place? Yes. You know what I mean? I think you and I would
serve people by telling them to go out the door. Again, back to Tony Hsieh. Tony was famous for telling people to walk within the first 2 weeks. Who the heck even does that?
Right.
But it's so true. Yeah, I love it, man. Love it.
So I will get that. I'll get that in the comments here in a second. I'm just
awesome. I'm watching comments too.
I'm struggling finding it only because I'm trying to run this thing and that. But anyways, it's called How to Win the Interview. If you go to projecthelpyourgrow.com, go to the blog. It's called How to Win the Interview. I'll get the link in here shortly. But I want to talk about, and maybe we could just do it, like I just did. It seems like the opposite ends of the coin right now. Parler is struggling because, they're not in the app stores, and they lost their AWS hosting. So they don't, you can only get them on their website right now because the app doesn't work, but they are working on getting it back. But the thing is, if you've spent a lot of time building your Parler and you were living like just there, well, right now you're hurting. And then there's the opposite end of the spectrum right now. The new kid on the block that seems to be like the shiny penny is Clubhouse. So if you want to talk about maybe those and, some of the pros and cons of just LinkedIn, or, like I remember when MySpace was the predominant, and now does MySpace even exist? I don't know. Maybe you can talk about that too.
Nobody's going to it, right?
Who knows, right?
Who knows? Maybe some people are. Maybe there's a secret MySpace economy with Tom running the show. But it's a very interesting subject. So on the surface, it doesn't make sense that one's the fair-haired boy and one is literally shut down. Because if you think about it, both of them preach that they are a place that doesn't moderate, that doesn't throttle the feed, that's not going to serve it up algorithmically, but it's going to show you your interests without a lot of moderation, which kind of isn't super true, right? So, man, this is such a complicated topic, because you have the protected rights of free speech as a citizen in the United States. Then you have private corporations, which are not the United States. Then you have their privacy policy. Then there are things such as hate speech. So if you've ever studied constitutional law, there are cases on record that you're not allowed to do things that can incite violence or disarray. And one of the Supreme Court justices, as they explain, I didn't know if you woke up this morning thinking we're going to talk about constitutional law, but hey, why not?
It's okay.
In my brain somewhere.
Anywhere. That's what's
allowed to kind of break this down for people.
Yeah.
You're allowed to say all sorts of crazy stuff that I might hate and Ira might hate, and crazy people that might literally want me dead might have a protected right to speak and assemble and all that. That's called America. Love it, hate it. We're a little weird, but we get along. All right. But you're not allowed to scream fire in a crowded theater because of the imminent threat that you're allowed to
not
do.
Right.
So it's not that. So Parler has been kind of tagged as this conservative hangout, but not just conservatives, because there's plenty of normal liberals and normal conservatives, and we're not getting political, but people who are on the fringes of society that kill people and ask people to harm other people, that's dangerous. Right. So I was reading about this over the weekend. So it's not like AWS, that's Amazon Web Services, which was hosting Parler. It wasn't just that they're like, we don't like your politics. It's like, no, here's 98 things that people were screaming for violence. Because let's take a step back, maybe a year ago, before COVID, right? There was this place called 4chan, but not just 4chan, there's a place called 8chan. 8chan was a breeding ground for bad things. They had a thing where there were people that literally were live streaming people, storming synagogues and murdering people. Live streaming, and people in the comments on 8chan, I'm sorry to get gross, they would say things like, try to get the high score. That's internet slang for maniacs saying to kill as many people as possible. Yeah. So guess what? They shut it down because it's an imminent threat where you're breeding terrorism. You can't have that in any platform. So I'm not here to be left, right, center, pink, purple, whatever. There's an interesting YouTuber that I like. We're not going to get into who, but he likes to say, I'm not left, right, I'm up, down. So I like to equally call out things that are wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's
and I agree with that. Look,
for anyone who's a free and open thinker.
If you purview my content, you'll be hard pressed to know if I'm Republican or Democrat, and frankly, it doesn't matter.
And it's nobody's business. That's also a protected right, by the way. Right. We are allowed to vote, and we don't have to say who it is that we voted for. We're allowed to not vote, which is kind of stupid, but we are. I mean, like people have died for you to vote. Okay, sure. You can be ridiculous, but again, by the way, former political science background, thought about being a lawyer, but I decided to be an internet guy instead. Yeah.
Well, and I love, and again, these are reasons why you're on my show. You have an intelligent way about you, right? You don't just say things to say things. You research, and so do I. I'm a freaking nerd. I study all the time. And this is for me. I want people like us to vote. You know what I mean? Like the person, if anybody's not going to vote, let it be the person who doesn't. They just are looking at the commercial. You know what I mean? Like I'm going to check all.
Oh my gosh! Since you're a nerd, I got to tell you something. I have to find a source for this. But do you know how much money was spent on the 2020 election?
Like all together? Yeah.
It's billions and billions and billions. You could have bought. I remember looking this up. It's literally the same gross domestic product as Jamaica, as an entire nation for the year.
Yeah.
So understand, one quick thing, you could have taken the 2012 election and the 2016 election, stack them together, and this was still billions more. It was like 13 or 14 billion dollars on it.
Yeah. This was a big deal.
It's crazy.
I come from the print background. It's funny that you mentioned Zappos. Zappos actually used to be one of my print clients in Vegas because I'm from Vegas. That's where I was working. Right on. One of the things that I worked for, one of the companies I worked for was called Nevada Color Litho. Now they've changed their name since, but we did direct mail printing. And in that particular shop, campaign season was a huge, like 40% bump in our revenue. Any election year. We had it in our forecast. We had it built in our forecasts.
Amazing.
It's an election year. We're going to have a lot of mail from that. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's a huge for people who don't know. And that's just one. Well, that's just one piece of the puzzle, right? You have all the signage, you have all the digital media, you know, whether it's radio space or TV space or now social media space, and all those different things that they spend money on. I mean, yeah, billions for sure. So, all right. So one of the things, if you're in business or if you're a job seeker, why we talk about all this stuff, and hopefully it makes sense to you now. If you are only living on one platform, you're at risk of the platform disappearing, no fault of your own. You also could be at risk, depending on what you post and how you post, of being shut down, because there are, you know, things like Twitter. It was news, and again, we're not going to get into the politics of this, but you know, the most powerful man it's always been said the president of the United States is the most powerful man in the world. Well, he just
more than that, though, right? So I think specifically about our current president, he had more earned media through social and people talking about him, love him, hate him, whatever. This is not.
Right. We're not talking
about the social and technological underpinnings. So please do not misunderstand what we're saying. We are not here to fight about any politics. Everybody chill out. Okay. Disclaimer. However, he on record had more earned media from social and news than like anybody in the history of the game. So for that to be like off the platform is wild beyond.
Yeah. And when you think about even their revenue drops, because you know, a lot of people don't think about like what happens on the other end of this. Why is social media free for the most part? You know why it's free? Because of the paid advertising that they can sell through it. Right. So when you have Trump or anybody famous making these tweets, and he was more Twitter than anything else. That was like his primary platform. You know,
did presidential announcements on Twitter? Like, what even is going on here?
His volumes of views, again, love or hate, we're not talking about the merits of that, right? We're going to leave that alone. But just the sheer volume. And so then they cut him off and said, okay, we don't like what you're saying, and goes again to the point that you were making about the parlor and some of the other stuff about, you know, the inciting riots. And there's a case that could be argued. And again, we're not talking about that either. But, you know, that's what they justified it for, or how they justified it. And they're a private company, so they're allowed to do it. But there are consequences, right? So for them, the opportunity cost of canceling the president's account was, in this particular case for sure, he's a heavy volume user, and there are ad buys that won't happen now because, you know, they've shut them off. So there is a tangible cost for them. But anyways, when you diversify your platforms, one of the things that you're giving yourself is the opportunity to shelter yourself, your own personal cost, if for any reason any of them drop off. And I'm not saying that you're going to incite riots and stuff, but I'm just saying, you know, the most common thing for people would be that the platform loses its luster. That's really, you know, like the thing with Parler is that's rare too. You know what I mean? Like you don't see that happen very often. So in the landscape of social media platforms, usually there's a natural ebb and flow where they rise. Like TikTok rose in 2020 pretty quickly. And a lot of it had to do, I think, with talk about influencers, Gary Vee, right? He said, jump on it. And everybody said, okay, well, if Gary Vee says so, I'm going to jump on it. And then I jumped off because I'm like, I don't see how it doesn't fit my brand. My target audience isn't on it. And I don't understand how to use this in a ROI that makes sense. Like I could get a few things out of it, but there was better time to be spent elsewhere. So I am not actively using TikTok, but you know, like this Clubhouse right now for me, it actually is. And you and I think both agree there's some value there for my business. I think for yours too. And there might be a lot of value for others, but that's not to say in 6 months that equation is still true, because the shine could fall off and the number of volume could go down, or what's probably more likely, LinkedIn, Facebook, some of these other giants that are already established with billions of users or 675 million users or whatever, right? Millions, hundreds of millions of people. They might come out with something similar and go, you know what, you don't have to leave the platform to get that same stuff, and you can get it here. And so, you know, as the equation changes, the answer might change.
Yeah, I want to be respectful of time, Ira. I know we were supposed to go until 3, and I know I got some stuff, but if I may, let me respond on a
Yeah,
couple
let's
points.
wrap it up. Yeah.
Sure. So I am actually in the middle of writing. I've been doing a few news articles covering Clubhouse, and I have one just depending on how my workflow is going to be, probably today within the next few days, covering this. So let me say it on your show before I put it out to the world. Almost, and you said it yourself. So I think that there's a contribution and consumption pyramid that every social media site has, that usually it's the 80-20 rule, but if we're being honest, it's more like the 99-1 rule. So here's the thing. If you're on a platform like LinkedIn, it's got 675 to 750, depending on which source you're quoting from, 1% or less of people are making stuff at the top of the pyramid, and then everybody else is consuming it. What's interesting about Clubhouse over everything else is they figured out a middle, because you could be a passive listener, an active listener, a get on the stage once in a while, a speaker, a moderator, and it's picture in picture like Netflix. You could do it in the car. You don't have to be perfectly primed and wear a suit on like video like we're doing now. They have figured out a middle that I have never seen before in the 15 years I've been practicing this.
Yeah.
That being said, Twitter just acquired something that's trying to be a rival of this. So it's going to be an interesting how they duke it out.
Right.
But that's an interesting, whether it's Clubhouse or somebody else taking it over, it has established itself as a different medium, sort of like how Twitter was a new medium in the sense of real-time news, just like radio, just like TV, just like print ads.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, all of the successful ideas in this world get duplicated, right? People try to imitate it, and that's a form of flattery. So I won't be surprised if there isn't 3 or 4 that rise up. One of the frustrations people have right now with Clubhouse is it's still in beta testing, and you have to have an iPhone, and you only get one invitation to invite people, so it's limited. So all that's
well, no, actually, so it depends on what you do. Sometimes you get 1, sometimes you get 3, sometimes you get 5, and as you navigate through, and I have some theories that I can share, but we're kind of running out of time.
Yeah, we're out of time.
As you do stuff, you do get more invites.
Yeah, I think one of the things I read was be a moderator, like actually host a room that helps you build. So,
I have the feeling that that is one of the things, but I think also promoting people. So even if you don't have an invite, sometimes it just says, hey, your friend from your phone contacts wants to go in. You want to let him in? So I think it's a combination of those two things that gives you more invites. Just my observation. Yeah.
Well, I shared, I don't know if you saw it, I shared on your screen. I just want to let people know if they're looking for you on LinkedIn, which is, I think, our favorite place to be. So go ahead and reach out to Brian and let him know you saw him on this show. When you send that invitation or message, let him know you saw him here. I'd appreciate that. And Brian, I want to thank you very much for coming on. We, I think you know, we're on YouTube, we're on Facebook, we're on LinkedIn, but also I share this on Spotify. So it is going to be that, and I do put the transcript of everything we said in case you guys are curious on digital media. So I'm gonna actually, let me share this real quick, because this is one of the things that I'm doing on my website here. I've got Marketing Mondays. You can come here and you can click in that. You can rewatch any show that you miss. But one that if we talked about something and you're looking for, like, you know, the Zappos information, you can come into the blog and you can catch yeah, you can catch the transcripts of the shows. So any of these, like this was last week with Michelle Gunn. So you can come in here.
Very smart.
You can catch everything, right? So links, questions, all that stuff, it's there for you. So I will send you, Brian, link to this stuff after it's done. It usually takes me about a day to get it all up. But for those in the audience, you can catch us in those places, and we appreciate it. Brian, thank you so much for joining.
Pleasure, man. This was great.
Yeah, that's fun. I eventually will get around to like inviting people back on the show. You and I could go for a lot longer for sure. But yeah, I do want to be respectful of the time, and we got to bounce. So thank you very much. Have a great day, my friend.
You too, man. Thank you again.
All right. See you. Thank you, everybody, for watching. This has been another episode of Marketing Mondays. This show, if you like it, happens every single Monday. It starts at 11 a.m. Pacific time, and you just have to, you know, convert for wherever you are. But thank you so much for joining. I hope you all have a wonderful day.